Todd, thank you. Good evening and welcome everyone to our radio listeners and those who are watching at sj-r.com. This is the Ward 6 Candidates Forum. We will begin with opening statements from our candidates and by coin toss prior to the beginning of the forum. The first opening statement will go to Martin Fruchtl.
Thank you, Jim. My name is Martin Fruchtl. I moved to Springfield in 1977. I began high school 2 days after I got here, and I ran for freshman class president because I figured nobody knew who I was, and that was a good way to get to know everybody. I've been active in social service events throughout my life from the time I started playing the organ when I was in 6th grade through volunteer activities with Special Olympics when I was in college and other service organizations throughout my life. I'm a veteran who's twice served overseas, and I decided that I wanted to run for office because I'm no longer in the service. I'm available, and I believe that I can provide service and fair representation to the people in Ward 6.
Thank you. And our next 60-second opening statement goes to Kristin DiCenso.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you to the SJR and WMAY for hosting this event. My name is Kristin DiCenso. I am a fourth-generation Springfield resident, and I believe I would be the best candidate for Ward 6 Alderman because of my experience. I have 12 years of state budget, managerial, and policy experience, as well as high-level issues. So I believe that my experience will carry me through and make me the best choice for Alderman for Ward 6. City Council needs a fresh voice and a fresh perspective, and I've said this on many occasions, and I believe I would bring that to City Council. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being interested in this race, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss my experience with everybody.
Candidates, thank you. We'll now be posing questions to you, alternating the order of which candidate will answer first. And the first question will come to you from the State Journal Register City Hall reporter, Mary Hansen.
Thanks so much. So, Kristin, this first question is for you. Tuesday night, last night, the council heard from a consultant from Rapid City about an idea for an interactive plaza on the now vacant YWCA block. Various ideas have been floated about this block for the past few years, including developers' proposal for a 200-unit apartment complex and a more recent proposal backed by Governor Bruce Rauner for a park like Chicago's Millennium Park. What do you think the city should do with the YWCA block?
I was able to listen to the City Council meeting last night, and I loved the proposal. As a single mother who has a young 8-year-old son, there aren't often opportunities like what was described in the proposal last night, a splash pad and an ice rink and some other interactive type of opportunities for children. We don't have enough of that in Springfield, and I think we need more. What the strongest point I took away from that discussion last night was that the main number of people that attended the Rapid City Park were actual residents. It wasn't a tourist attraction. It was something for residents to go and visit and take their kids to. So I think that would be a fantastic addition to downtown. How it's all going to be built and funded and sponsored, those sorts of things, of course, need to be fleshed out. But I think it's a great opportunity for Springfield to really engage the community and get people downtown for a different reason.
Martin, the same question to you.
Well, sitting there last night at the City Council meeting, I enjoyed the presentation, and I believe it's a much better use of the property than what has originally been proposed in the past. The 200-unit apartment complex was not a very good idea, I don't believe. It would have blocked the view of the mansion and not been in style with what's going on Capitol Avenue. If you have an event location, such as a park like that, I believe the city would get its money back in terms of the investment. You'd see property taxes and property values would be able to be increased as a result. It will take a while for it to be developed, and it will take time to see the return on the money. And if we're willing to go long-term, it may be very well worth the investment, and I'd like to see the plans to see how it would work out in the long run.
Let's turn our attention now to economic development on a broader scale citywide. The city has a number of incentives, including the joint enterprise zone with the county, a number of TIF districts. Where do you think the city should focus its economic development efforts? On factory or blue-collar jobs, the tech industry, the medical sector, or some other area of economic growth? And this question goes first to Martin Fruchtl.
Well, the city can't rely on retail anymore. We've seen that through the first part of this year with several stores closing down. We've seen that with the declining revenues out of the sales tax. And I would like to see the city go into some kind of light production of some kind, a light industry. We have property available in Precinct 19 out near Shields, right off the interstate. We have other property that's available and readily accessible that could be turned into light industrial areas. It would provide jobs. It would provide economic opportunity. It would provide growth for the city. I'd like to see better use of the TIF districts and the enterprise zones, and possibly do something more on the east side of Springfield.
Kristin?
I believe we should probably focus our efforts on tech. That seems to be the most up-and-coming sector. It has staying power. It has the ability to produce a lot of jobs. We actually have a business incubator in Springfield that is heavily underutilized. I've spoken of this often. It's called Innovate Springfield. And that's what they do. They nurture these up-and-coming companies and get them out into the mainstream. And we need to kind of focus our efforts on that. As far as we do have lots of available space. As far as TIF districts go, we are underusing TIFs as compared to comparable sized cities. We have 8 TIF districts in Springfield. Cities such as Collinsville, Belleville, they have 20 TIF districts. Whether that's the way we decide to go or not, I'm not sure, but I do think that going in the tech direction is what we should probably try to capitalize on, given the fact that we do have people in this community with knowledge of how to foster that sort of growth.
Moving on to city finances, the city faced a tough budget year this year with dropping sales tax revenues and rising costs. While the council passed a spending plan, there are sure to be more difficult decisions to come. Should the city continue to dip into reserves, pursue more revenue, or rely on economic growth? Kristin, this goes to you.
I don't think we can, at this point, with what's in place, rely on economic growth. I don't know that we've cut everything we've been able to cut. And I think that some harder votes are going to need to be taken regarding revenue generation. There were some opportunities that could have gone farther, and we've talked about this again before, but I think that we have to look at where we're comfortable with possibly paying a little more that won't totally wipe us out and that people are comfortable with, some sort of increase that people are comfortable with. The hotel motel tax passed, which is great for Oak Ridge Cemetery, as well as some tourism programs downtown. But going forward, I think we just need to look at what else, and I've done this before in state government, what else can we trim back on to get to where we need to be budget-wise? Kicking the can down the road, as we've seen in state government, it doesn't work. It doesn't work in city government. We need to figure out some different solutions.
Martin, to you.
Well, I think that the city made a short-term solution to a long-term problem this year. There will be hard decisions that have to be made down the road. I believe they need to look at maintaining services while trying their best not to increase the expenses to the average person in the city of Springfield. I don't know that we can get down that road without looking at additional revenues. Where those revenues will come from, we'll have to explore. I would like to see economic growth provide those revenue sources rather than a tax increase. But I also want to maintain services. I don't want to see us have to cut back on the patrol officers in the evening time, where only 2 patrol officers cover from South Grand and MacArthur to Stanford Avenue and over to Bunn Park. We have to have that. And I want to maintain basic services first and foremost. And if we have to cut, we'll cut some more, but maintain the services.
You've both touched on the issue of revenue. I want to delve a little more deeply into that. Of course, the mayor's original budget proposal had several tax hikes proposed. The hotel motel tax, as was noted, did pass, but there were other taxes, including a new natural gas tax, along with the increase in sales and telecommunications taxes that were defeated. How would you have voted on each of those, and are there other areas where you would contemplate a tax increase to try to balance the city's books? That question again would go first to Martin Fruchtl.
The one tax I think I could have supported would have been the one for the library. I don't believe the library is funded well enough, and it takes from the general revenue fund, and the general revenue fund is taxed enough as it is. We're going to be down near the 12% in terms of our reserves on the general revenue fund next year, and we've got to do something to keep it from going below that 12% level. So I believe I might have voted for that one. I don't think I wanted to vote for the others, at least not unless there was some kind of sunset clause and something that would prevent them from becoming part of the operating budgets in the long run. You know, that's what happens is you pass a tax for something specific, and then that specific issue is taken care of, and then it becomes part of the operating budget and ongoing. And then when you need it for what it was originally proposed for, it's not there. So if we had a sunset clause, I could think about possibly supporting something, but only under those circumstances.
Kristin DiCenso?
I would have voted for the sales tax. We're talking about a 0.25% increase on the sales tax. That would bring us up to what surrounding cities are currently charging for sales tax. Do any of us want to see our taxes raised in any way, shape, or form? Absolutely not. But we have to be realistic about what's happening in the world and in Springfield specifically. If we sunset a tax like we did with the state income tax, you know, that took billions of dollars out of our general revenue fund. That just doesn't work. So we need to, you know, during the town hall meetings back in September, the mayor's town hall meetings, there was a woman who said, I would be happy to pay more, a retiree on a fixed income. And she said, I would be happy to pay more in sales tax if that meant infrastructure was going to be solved, if that meant we were going to be able to keep services. And I think everybody feels that way. It's not a ton of money. So I think we need to be realistic about the issues that are facing us and tackle them head on instead of, again, kicking the can down the road.
So speaking of kicking the can down the road, Springfield's pension payments and unfunded liability continue to grow. This year, nearly all of the city's property tax income will go towards police and fire pension payments. What does the city need to do to address growing pension costs? Kristin?
Wow, well, that's a tough one. The last I looked, it was eating up about 65%. And we dealt with this issue at IDOT as well. We weren't able to fund road projects because all of our costs were going to pensions. It's a problem. It's going to be a bigger problem when everybody starts retiring early, and then we're faced with not being able to hire people because the pension costs are so high. So do I specifically have a solution for the pension problem? No, I don't. If it's, you know, going to a different type of tiered system for incoming employees, you know, a wage freeze has been discussed. Alderman McMenamin is a big fan of the wage freeze. I am not. I don't think you punish the current employees, but I think that we just need to start strategically planning everything. We don't have any long-term plans, and that's a problem in the city. Where are we going, what are we doing, and how are we going to get there? And that's what we need to start looking towards the future for.
Martin?
Well, the city has addressed this in instituting a tier plan for the new employees. They also have changed from having a guaranteed 3 or 4% increase per year spread out over 3 or 4 years to be compounded upon each other to having a consumer price index put into the contracts. So if the CPI is 1.5%, that's the raise. It's not a guaranteed 3% and therefore above what the consumer price index change would be. So the city has made efforts to try and control future costs. That doesn't solve the issue with the people that are under the old plans and the old costs associated with them. We need to cover those because we said we would. We have a liability and a responsibility to meet that obligation to those people. But going forward, if we have to adjust and modify the tier plan and continue to look at those kinds of cost-saving measures, that would work. But I think we'll see savings in the long run.
This is live coverage of a candidates forum with the candidates for Ward 6, the vacant seat in the Springfield City Council. Our next question will go first to Martin Fruchtl. We want to turn now to the issue of crime in Springfield, street violence in particular. Do you believe the police department has the appropriate staffing levels, and is that staff being deployed properly to address this issue?
They're stretched. I mentioned already the coverage for the 11 to 3 shift that I was on and did a ride-along with, there are 2 officers covering a very large area. And sometimes they can be called out to the lake. Sometimes they can even go as far south as the Walmart on South 6th Street. And then 3 o'clock in the morning, some of the officers go over to the old barbecue place over on Martin Luther King Drive, and then other officers head downtown because of the bar closings and such. And it's an issue. I've had issues in my neighborhood with police officers being there. I don't want to see any decrease in public safety, that's for certain. I don't know that we can increase it, but I want to maintain it at its current level at minimum, because public safety is something that's affected me and my family. So we'll have to see where we can go with it and control the expenses and maintain what we have.
Kristin DiCenso?
I also did a ride-along, and I might have a little different perspective on this. And I think that we don't want to cut police or fire, of course. But I think the citizens want to be engaged. One of the biggest questions I get when I knock on doors is, what can we do to reinstate the community, the neighborhood watch program? There used to be a 66 or an 80% participation rate to get signage for the neighborhood watch program. And they're talking now about decreasing that to about 60% to get the citizens more involved. There are apps that I'm currently on. One's called Nextdoor, where people are very active on things that are going on in their neighborhood, whether it's someone walking down the street or a dog lost or whatever it is. But I think we, again, need to use technology to keep better informed, including law enforcement. Keep them informed of what's going on and make sure they have the information they need to do their jobs correctly.
So let's talk a little bit about Ward 6. A frequent complaint from residents all over the city is the state of streets, sidewalks, and sewers, particularly in older neighborhoods like the ones in Ward 6. What infrastructure projects would you advocate for your ward as alderman?
You just said it. Streets, sidewalks, and sewers are a huge problem. My street made national news when we had the flood in 2010. It was underwater. We have some of the oldest sewers in the city, so I think that's probably the biggest problem. We also have all these gumball trees that clog up the sewers. It's another issue. It sounds like it's no big deal and it should be an easy fix, and the city did actually implement a program a few years ago that offered residents to cut down the gumball tree and plant a new one for $250. It's a huge problem with the sewers. It clogs them up. It wrecks your sidewalk. It gets in the middle of cracks. It sounds so silly, but streets, sidewalks, and sewers are a huge issue. Also, something going back to public safety a little bit is lighting. I've walked on some streets that only have 2 street lights on an entire street. That's a problem. So I just think we need to we just want the basics in Ward 6. It's an older neighborhood. We want nice new sidewalks. We want some streets repaired, and we want some sewers fixed.
Martin?
Well, where I live, the tree out front needs to be trimmed because when it's in full bloom, it blocks the light at the corner where I live. And when you pull up to a stop sign, and it's very dark. And that's one thing that the city can do. I know they put some extra lights down Yale Boulevard, and I had a gentleman complain that 10th Street hasn't seen any extra lights where he is. They've only got 4 lights along their street. So lighting is an issue. The streets themselves, there are some areas that are worse than others. I was on Burton Street, and it is absolutely horrendous. It is pothole after pothole at the end of every driveway. The puddles were 12 inches deep. So, yeah, you got to do the basics. 10 miles a year in terms of alleyways being paved and stuff doesn't sound like a lot, but we have to maintain those types of things and address and prioritize and get the worst first and then work from there.
For a long time, a big issue in Ward 6 was the Bel Air Motel. It is now gone, and in its place is another large vacant lot in the ward and in the city. What should be done with this property, and what can or should the city do to assist in that development? Martin Fruchtl. Well,
I would use a TIF if we had to, if we could do something down in that area. you're going to have development along Stanford Avenue, and that's going to present some issues when they expand that area of Stanford Avenue and make it 4-lane all the way across. So we'll have to see where the redevelopment along that way goes. I'd like to see a unified plan to take into account that particular piece of property and Stanford Avenue and get that corridor worked up. I'm not sure what exactly would be the best. I know the neighbors have some issues with what they would like to see in there. So we'd like to have something that the neighborhood is actually happy with in terms of what goes in there also. So, because that's their neighborhood, they need to be able to have a voice in what goes there. I'm not sure a strip mall is the best idea. I would love to see something that could be a standalone if possible. But if not, then we'll have to explore options and see where we can go.
Kristin DiCenso?
Well, I know they don't want a liquor store or a gun store there. We've established that. But I think we need to start thinking in another direction. Maybe an urban farm, maybe something that the community can wrap its arms around. Harvard Park is a very unified part of the city, and they really care about what happens. It's a very active neighborhood association over there. So I think we need to just start thinking in different directions. We need to start thinking about what could possibly generate jobs in that area. We don't have a lot going on over there. There is the whole county market over there and the burger bar and all that whole strip mall area. So I don't think a strip mall is the answer, but I think something new and different that community, that area of town could really wrap its arms around. I think that's something we need to examine and kind of go from there. I don't think we need to I think it needs to be, again, we need to have a plan for it. We need to decide what that area wants to be, because right now, we don't know.
Though not in Ward 6, but very close, MacArthur Boulevard has seen some new energy since the opening of a Hy-Vee grocery store. The TIF district that was created can soon support projects, or will likely soon be able to support projects. So how would you like to see development continue on MacArthur Boulevard?
I think we need to engage some interested developers. Part of MacArthur Boulevard is okay, and then part of MacArthur Boulevard isn't great. That whole town and country shopping center area, is that what it's called? That whole area is kind of falling apart. So we have this beautiful grocery store, and then we kind of have the rest of it. There is a new Starcrest Cleaners going in. There was a $10 million investment made in the villas of MacArthur Boulevard. Southside Christian Church just did a $3 million renovation, a beautiful space over in their area. I attended a meeting there a few weeks ago. It's beautiful. But there's a lot of need over there. We're very excited. I live right around the corner. I'm very excited about the Free Press coffee shop going in there. It can just take one or two small businesses that can change the entire feel of the entire neighborhood. And I think that's what everyone's looking for. They're looking for a walkable, accessible neighborhood. At least I am. That's what I want. And I think a lot of the other residents do too.
Martin?
Ruler still has an option on the land where the theater used to be. I would like to see Rulers actually go in over there and stir some competition. Competition is good. Prairie Farms is planning on moving, so we need to look at someone that can utilize that piece of property there. The improvements that have been done, such as the church and some other locations, are very good, but I remember when that shopping mall was just busy as can be, and the theater was there, and of course I'm stating my age by saying that, but it was a good time, and I'd like to see that again if we could revitalize that area. Hy-Vee makes a good anchor from which to build and which to improve, but we have to work both directions, north and south, and everybody in the neighborhood will benefit, whether it be the people in Ward 7 or the people in Ward 6.
Time for one last question before we go to closing statements. This would be a citywide issue, again, related to city water, light, and power. President Trump has suggested deep cuts to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The new head of the EPA has advocated for relaxing many regulations, including some that would directly affect CWLP as a coal-burning power plant. Should the utility follow the relaxed standards or continue to strive for high environmental standards in the future? Martin Fruchtl.
The city discussed that in one of the council meetings, and they were talking about trying to see what was going to happen with regards to where the EPA was going to go in terms of how strict they were going to be. I would prefer they stay with the higher standards. I know that they've got some money that is set aside in preparation for the current standards to be enforced, for the ash ponds to be removed, for some additional work to be done on the scrubbers and things like that to keep things into standard. And I know there's an issue with the water coming in from out there that goes to the treatment plant, the slag water. Even though it gets treated again. So I would hate to see us lose what we have already accomplished in terms of maintaining it. We're one of the cleanest coal burners there is, and we used to have credits and we lost them, and that's a shame, but I'm not a fan of credits in the first place. So let's keep it up and keep it going.
Kristin DiCenso?
No, we don't need to relax any regulations on any coal burning plant. Again, I think we need to look to the future and look to solar and wind and see how we can, try to restructure what we have going on. And I have people say to me, well, then what are we going to do with all these guys? Well, we can put all of our CWLP employees to work by burying all these power lines around the city. That would keep them busy for the next 15, 20 years. And I can speak to this intimately because my ex-husband is a lineman for the city of Springfield, and I know what they do on a daily basis. So, again, we need to look to some cleaner alternatives and something that is going to set Springfield apart, or at least put Springfield on the map for some clean energy. I think that's really the way we need to go moving forward.
Candidates, we're out of time. Thank you for your answers. We will now have 60-second closing statements, and we'll begin with Kristin DiCenso.
Well, since I flubbed up my opening statement, I'm going to go ahead and read what I wrote for the closing. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Thank you to the SGR and WMAY. Thank you to Martin for your service to our country. It's much appreciated. I believe I'm the best candidate for Alderman of Ward 6 because I have a vision for this ward and I have hope for this city. My experience in government, business, and nonprofit work makes me the best candidate to represent Ward 6. From transportation and public works issues to my background in policy, budget, legislation, and management, I have the knowledge and know-how it takes to represent the people of Ward 6 in a thoughtful and effective way. City Council needs a new voice, a voice with a different perspective. As someone who has been active, engaged, and committed to this ward for the past 7 years, I'm confident that I'm the best person to represent this ward. Thank you for your time this evening.
And now a closing statement from Martin Fruchtl.
Okay. I'd like to thank the SJR and everybody else for having us, and Jim for you being here to moderate. Mary, thank you for everything. I've dealt with Social Security and their rules and regulations. I've dealt with Medicaid and their rules and regulations. I've dealt with the Army, and God knows they have lots of regulations. And so that's not anything that I'm not unfamiliar with. I can find the answers, and I will find the answers. When people have a question, I will find the answers for them. I will treat everyone fairly. I will represent everyone equally. And I do worry about the city of Springfield like most people. I would like to see a comprehensive financial plan to go along with our plans and projects that are set to go down the road. I'd like to have it be set up to be at least 5 years, if not longer, so that we can tie things together. The comprehensive package is the way to go. It should be a living document, should be flexible, and in the long run, it provides a guide from which we can build. Thank you.
Let's have a well-deserved round of applause for our candidates in Ward 6. We will take a 3-minute break, and then we'll return with our candidates for the Springfield School Board. This is News Talk 94.7 and 970 WMAY Springfield, W234CC Sherman, also live at WMAY.com and SJ-R.com. We'll return in 3 minutes. And welcome back. We are live on News Talk 94.7 and 970 WMAY, and also with the State Journal Register for a candidates forum. We now turn our attention to the contested Springfield School Board race on the ballot. That's the race in Subdistrict 6, the incumbent Judith Johnson, the challenger Tom Shafer. We will begin with 60-second opening statements from our candidates, and by mutual agreement, the first opening statement will come from Judith Johnson.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Judith Ann Johnson. Everybody calls me Judy. And I would like to thank WMAY and State Journal Register for hosting this forum this evening. I am the incumbent in this subdistrict, Subdistrict 6. I have been on the school board since 2001. Some people say that I may be the conscience of the school board. I tried to be, because I try to look out for children, and I tried to make sure that our employees had the best benefits possible. I think that that is the responsibility of the school board, to be vigilant about what happens in the schools on a day-to-day basis, and to be vigilant about how we spend our few dollars that we do have. I am looking forward to serving another term. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And you get calls 24/7, and it's sometimes quite a challenge.
And your time is up. Thank you. And now to candidate Tom Shafer.
Thank you, Jim. My name's Tom Shafer. I'm a product of the district. I was born and raised on the east side in my sub-district. I attended Pleasant Hill Elementary School, George Washington Junior High School. I'm a graduate of Lanphier High School back in '74. And then I did 2 quick years at Springfield College off a Lanphier scholarship. So I'm a product of the district, like my mother, my 2 children, my father, my grandfather, my grandmother. I go way back in town. I've run before previously. I ran against a wonderful woman named Nina Giavaris, a giant in the district. I couldn't beat her. She left a legacy that big shoes to fill. I ran against Chuck Flamini, 40 years dedicated to the district. I couldn't beat him. In fact, I voted for him, and he was my opponent. When I saw his resume, I thought a person like this should be on the board. I would have never filed for this. I'm not trying to oust Judy Johnson in any way. She said she was stopping. I believed her, so I would have never filed. We're in a ironic situation here. If she wouldn't have said that, I wouldn't have filed. But since I'm in the race, I'm going to try my best to, she has my admiration.
Candidates, thank you. We'll now go to the question and answer portion. Again, 60 seconds per answer. We will alternate which candidate will answer first. And the first question will be posed by the State Journal Register's education reporter, Jason Neville.
Thank you, Jim. Tom, this question is for you. As a board member, one of your primary responsibilities will be to vote on the budget. Is there something in the budget you believe the district spends wastefully on, and something you wish the district spent more on?
Wastefully, I'll save for the second part of my answer, but since we can't afford to build new, because every time we go to the voters for a tax increase, they say no. In fact, they say heck no. So that leaves us with the facilities that we have, and I made a quote previously that you don't get to educate 15,000 students with the district that you want to have. You educate them with the district that you do have. So that means since we can't afford to build new, we have to have maintenance. And I'm going to look at the maintenance section of the budget, because our winters are horrendous, our summers are horrendous. Maintenance is what you're left with if you can't build new. So that's the portion of the budget that I'm going to focus on. I'm proud of our facilities. I'm a product of our facilities. My 2 children are. I enjoyed every school board meeting I've attended and every school that I've visited in my previous runs for office. This is a nice district. I have now the wasteful part of the budget. We're going to have to cut a hard line on the contract. I know the teachers union hasn't endorsed me, and that's probably the reason why, but you just got to draw the line at some point, and it's unfortunately, I think that point has befallen the country, the state, and our district. So that's what I'd look at for the flaws with the budget.
Judy?
Well, it would be nice to have more money. I personally think that our buildings are well maintained. We have to spend money in the O&M budget in order for our employees to do their jobs, for the buildings to be clean. If you attend any events, sometimes people do leave a lot of trash behind. So our people do a great job, and they're dedicated. I don't think they make that much money for what they do. It would be nice to be able, I think, to pay them more, but we seem to be able to, each time we have a contract negotiation, to work within a certain budget amount and to have it accepted by each particular union that we do have within the district. So I don't see a lot of waste. I think that we could put more money into technology for sure. We could use more facilities, but as you know, we are currently doing a facility study.
Next question, since Mr. Shafer mentioned the teacher's contract, I want to delve a little bit more deeply into that. The board recently approved a one-year deal with the teachers union that includes step increases for longevity and educational levels, but not an across-the-board raise. How satisfied are you with that agreement? And for future agreements, what changes would you like to see? And specifically, where would you restrict or expand that agreement? And that question goes first to Judy Johnson.
Okay. Well, the last several years, we have only been able to negotiate a one-year contract. And I think that's tedious. That means that as soon as you settle a contract, then you begin negotiations on a new one. We need some longevity in terms of what we can offer our teachers. We don't have a boatload of money to distribute across the board. And when we start negotiations, we do teachers, we do maintenance, we do secretarial. There are about four or five different units. And people work hard in this district. They do. People talk about teachers maybe only working 9 months a year, but in those 9 months, there are some days I know that are treacherous. So I think if we could put more money into those steps, it would be, I think the teachers would really, truly appreciate it.
And now to Tom Shafer.
Well, the second question out of the box is more money for teachers. I want to see results. I want to see graduation rates improved. I want to see the truancy rate go down. My job is real simple as a board member, put a diploma in every student's hand that starts in this district. I saw a Democratic candidate for governor say that only 20% of our students were prepared for college. Let me hang on that. Only 20% of our students are prepared for college. That's unacceptable to me. I want to see results. Sure, I like to have a nice pay. Everybody likes to have a nice check. But I want to see results. I am a results candidate. I would be a results-driven board member. Everything that we try to do, the teachers union resists. Teacher testing, they're opposed to it. We don't want to tie the test scores of the students to the teachers. They're opposed to it. 20%, our dropout rate, tremendously high. Our graduation rate, tremendously low. Our truancy rate, tremendously high. If you want more money, you got to show me some results. And I'd like to see the graduation rate skyrocket under a Tom Shafer board member, and I'd like to see more people prepared for college. That's my results-driven candidacy.
Thank you.
This question's for Tom. The district, you guys referenced this earlier, District 186 is in the early stages of conducting a comprehensive facilities study. What do you see are the critical needs for facilities, and how do you think the district should pay for them?
Ridgely's brand new. Matheny-Withrow is brand new. Enos is brand new. They're nice. Pleasant Hill is closed, my old grade school, as well as Wanless. We closed Hay Edwards, but it's still there. We closed Matheny a decade ago, but it's still there. Old and well-built does not necessarily mean bad. If I expect our facilities to last. When you build a substantial brick building, yeah, it needs upgrades. Yes, it needs maintenance. But it seems to me like this process is driven by architects who just want to build brand new. When you go and you need a roof on your house, it would be nice. Your roofer would say, well, just buy a new house. Don't put a roof on, just buy a new house. It would be nice to build brand new for everything. I said it before and I'll say it again. You don't get to teach 15,000 students with the district that you wish you had. You have to teach them with the district that you do have. And I've been through it. One of my previous candidates, I toured every school in the district. I never had to hang my head one time. I'm proud of our facilities. I wish we could have wood shop and metal shop return to the middle schools. I think that kind of hands-on learning is quality. I'll stop because my time is up.
Having been on the board since 2001, I have been through 2 or 3 facility studies. I think that the process that we're going through now is different, structured differently. I believe that our buildings are in great shape, but when people are coming into this community to add to our economic base, doctors, lawyers, or professors at the university, they want their children to go to modern facilities. If you go out to Chatham, you go to Rochester, they have nice facilities. They have those small communities have also been able to build some gymnasium facilities that are very helpful. It took forever. In 2016 is when we got toilet paper on a roll, okay? They've had that in small districts for a long time. It does make a difference. I've had students come up to me and thank me for pushing that particular issue.
Candidates, thank you. Our next question. Last year in District 186, 35% of white students met or exceeded expectations on the state's performance exam, compared to just 12% of black students. Meanwhile, the four-year graduation rate for white students was 83%. It was 70% for blacks. Similar disparities have been noted among income levels. What more can the district do to address this achievement gap? Judy Johnson.
Well, I think that not being in the classroom every day, I can't give you a specific solution, but I think that it starts in the elementary level where you interact with kids, you get them to be interested in education. Education is required, but it can also be enjoyable. I didn't grow up in Springfield, but I had an enjoyable education experience because the teachers respected me and I gave them respect. They challenged me to learn. They pushed me. You have to push a child to learn. If you don't encourage a child to do their best, they're only going to go so far. I've had several discussions in the district about handwriting, cursive writing. I believe that we need to put more emphasis on cursive writing. You need to know how to sign your checks. You need to know how to sign a mortgage. There are issues that can be addressed.
Your time is up. Tom Shafer.
Achievement. I'm not a hand-holding, back-patting kind of a guy, as you can probably tell. I'm a pusher, a nudger. I demand results. Everybody that's successful in this room had somebody in their life that said, go after it, get after it, work harder, quit crying, get back up, and do better, do your best. We need somebody in the district that does that for these youth. It didn't hurt you a bit that somebody told you to work harder. It was probably good for you. I know with my father and my mother, it was good for me. They said, be a cut above. A student doesn't know how hard he can work until he's pushed. It doesn't hurt him a bit. We need less cheerleading for the district, and we need more push. I'm a nudger. I demand results. Now, you do it in a loving, caring way. We need loving, caring, concerned educators. But here's the problem with the district right now. Too much mom, not enough dad. Now, I can cut that down to just 3 words. Not enough dad. That's in my life. That was the guy that said, you're going to get out there. You're going to get back up. You're going to start all over. And you're going to work all night if you have to. That's what we need in this district, is we need a nudger.
Follow-up question, Tom. In what ways, you've mentioned results a couple times, what ways would you use to measure results? Would it be graduation rates, or what other types of metrics would you use to measure results?
I got a real simple plan as a board member. A diploma, a quality, meaningful diploma that says this student of any age, of any race, of any sex, that they completed a curriculum of study in this district and they are awarded this diploma. Whether they go into the military, whether they go into college, whether they go into the trades or start a family, I have no control over that. What I have control over is every student that starts in this district a diploma. That is the meaningful item. I was going to bring mine tonight from Lamphere and show it to you because I kept mine, like I'm sure you all kept yours. It is the 12 years plus kindergarten plus pre-K that shows your dedication to this district, your work effort, your studies, that gives you that diploma that matters in this district. It's all we can hand them. It is the most meaningful thing that we do as a board. And that's going to be my primary focus besides building maintenance, is a diploma for every student that starts in this district.
Judy, how would you gauge, or excuse me, we're going to stick with Tom.
Yeah, please, let's stick.
How would you gauge the effectiveness of the district's efforts to recruit minority teachers and administrators? This one is for Tom.
Well, we keep asking. They have to go to college. You can't just pick somebody out of the blue. They have to have a bachelor's degree and a teaching certificate. We've tweaked the teaching certificates to make them a little bit easier and less onerous, less regulatory, so that we were even having trouble finding substitute teachers. It is a struggle. I followed this recruitment drive for police and fire. You ask some of these young people, do you want to be a fireman? They just look at you like you're crazy. They say, do you want to be a police officer? They just look at you like you're a foolish question. How can we get people to even get a bachelor's degree? I have no answers right off the top of my head. We troll, and we catch very little. It's hurting the district, and I believe our numbers could go up. But finding solutions, it's going to be an ongoing, endless challenge for who's ever elected to this board seat.
Judy, to you now.
Well, I know that we put quite a bit of effort into recruiting minorities into this district. Tom mentioned that as a board member, his goal would be that we would put a diploma in every student's hand that comes into the district. That's good. But once they get a diploma, before they get the diploma, you have to encourage them to want to go into teaching. Teaching is an honorable profession, but realize that it is not one of the top paid professions coming out of school. People have got to have an advocacy feeling for children if they want to teach. They need to be people who enjoy what they're doing. We just don't want everybody going into a classroom and spreading some words that don't make any sense to the children. You've got to encourage those children. We go out and all over the country looking for teachers for Springfield District 186, but you have to realize the numbers are not out there for the recruitment.
This is a live forum with the candidates for Springfield School Board Subdistrict 6 here on News Talk 94.7 and 970 WMAY and streaming at sj-r.com. Our next question will go first to Judy Johnson. The Springfield School District's been under a court desegregation order since 1976. What are your views on that order, and is it still necessary in the year 2017?
I believe that it is more than 50 years old. I believe that the district makes a great effort to comply with the deseg order. The deseg order covers the number of teaching positions and other positions in the district. As I just said, the number of candidates to go into teaching is not great throughout this country. Every school district in America is struggling with the same problem when it comes to minorities for teaching. Even, I would imagine, for the majority, they are struggling. When I go into a school or classroom and do a reading, I always ask the kids, well, what is it that you strive to do when you graduate from high school? And it's very rare that the first hand up says that they want to go into teaching. If you get 2 out of the classroom, that's great. But will they be able to follow through on that?
Time is up. Tom Shafer?
I walked down Milton Avenue to my local school, Pleasant Hill, for kindergarten through 6th grade. 7 years I never got on a bus. It was a joy to have the same classmates next to you every day. The continuum, your teachers talked. They knew how you did previous year. You had a continuum of education that I wish we had it back. 50 years of the deseg order, I think that we have succeeded. I think we followed the desegregation order. We certainly can't go back to the bad old days. I would never advocate such a thing. But I think a serious look at returning in some areas of the district to local schools, which fundamentally assists education. Instead of busing children all the way across town, our transportation costs kill us every year. I think we could look, at some point you have to declare victory. Should we have 100 years of the deseg order, 150 years of the deseg order? At some point, you have to declare victory and move forward. I think we could find some local schools in this district. I believe we could, and lower our busing costs, keep some of the kids together for year after year, which is a huge assist in education. At some point, I believe we've complied.
Tom, this question is for you. Do you believe the way the District 186 issues discipline is equitable and fair? And are there any changes that you would like to see regarding how the district handles disciplinary matters?
Well, I sound like an old guy again. I know how they disciplined me. They paddled me. And it was effective. We needed it. There was a lot of us back. My Grant Lanphier class had 700 kids in it. There were children everywhere. We had to have a split shift. There were so many of us. We can never return to the days of corporal punishment. We have to make changes now because of that, and in some areas, we've lost control of our classrooms. The teachers are young. The class sizes are enlarging because we can't afford 1,000 classrooms for 15,000 students, so we have to afford about 700 classrooms, meaning about 22 per classroom, and that's a challenge, especially with the youth of today, their defiance, disorder, their lack of respect for authority figures in all areas of society. It's challenging. So I don't want to send out a kid into expulsion or out of school suspension. I'd like to see them in school more. School is a normalizer for our youth, especially our troubled youth, especially our learning disabled youth. They need more education, not less. But I hear the teachers union continuously say we need help in the classroom.
Judy?
Well, we've made some strides in discipline. Being on the board, I always say the hardest part of that is to do the expulsions. I was thinking yesterday or the day before we had board meeting, and I have not done expulsions in a while, but when I do them, I always want to know what is the academic record of that student that we're particularly reviewing. If you see a student that's making D's and F's across the board, then somebody should be looking to see and trying to work with the student and with the parents to make sure that that student can bring those grades up. You have to encourage a student to do their best, and if you're not encouraging them to do their best, then you've got a problem that leads to discipline problems. They don't want to pay attention, and the challenge does become part of what is happening and what is the teacher teaching in the particular school, in the classroom.
Can I make a follow-up statement?
You'll have time at the end for a closing statement, but we want to stay with our time limits here.
Thank you, Jim.
So I'd like to move on to return to a point, Tom, that you brought up earlier related to wanting to see results from teachers. What would be the standard, the measure that you would use to determine those results? Would it be standardized test scores? Some teachers say they shouldn't be necessarily held to account for students who aren't getting the support they need at home. What would the measure be that would be a fair metric of how a teacher is actually performing in the classroom? This question would actually go first, though, to Judy Johnson.
I would say that it's possible that we do need to tie test results to what the teacher is doing in the classroom. If you see that a teacher is producing students that are making all A's, or if they have a well-rounded group of students in the particular classroom, then you know they're doing their job. If the teacher is failing quite a few students, then we need to look at any measure. You need to look at job performance, and to have people to go sit in the classroom to review what those people are teaching. I think that's a very good way to see what we're doing and what kind of people we're employing in the district.
Tom Shafer?
I'll tell you one thing, the teachers union would find Tom Shafer a lot more amenable during contract time if I saw test scores go up, if I saw graduation rates go up, if I saw truancy go down, if I saw more than 20% of our students graduate or ready for college. They'd find me very flexible come contract time. Like I said before, I'd use all those metrics. We've tried almost everything, and yet we're still, it seems like we're spinning our wheels. We're stuck in place. I don't know what other board members think about this. They might just be giving up. I'm just warming up. I think that all the metrics should be on the table. And the contested points, sure, they're going to resist it. But just like a student should be pushed, a lot of people need nudged. If a teacher's in a rut, she needs a nudge. He or she needs a push. They need a little attaboy. They need a little get after them. It never hurts to nudge. Every time it was done in my life, it was a help, not a hindrance long term. So it goes just as good for the teacher's performance as it does for the student's performance, and I'm willing to do both if I'm elected to this position.
Next question, this one goes to Tom. Are Springfield schools safe, and are there steps the district should take to make them safer?
We have a crazy society. Things happen that are just beyond the pale. I am unwilling and I will not discuss complete comprehensive security in an open public forum. What I will say is, if you try to do something nefarious, even vandalism, under a Tom Shafer on the school board, you're going to find out that it's going to be unpleasant for you. You're going to run into something, you're going to have a bad day. That's what I would say out in a public forum. Now, in an executive session or talking with our security consultants, including the Springfield Police Department, I might have more pointed comments. I might have more pointed direction. But I will say one thing. Under Tom Shafer as a board member, the Springfield Public Schools will be safe, period.
Judy?
I believe that Springfield Public Schools are safe. You know that we do employ off-duty police officers in a great number of our buildings. and we have an ongoing relationship with the Springfield Police Department. There are several police officers who are about to retire who do off-duty work in our district, and I believe that we are going to employ some of those people. So I think when we have a good security plan, when something happens near a building can go on a soft lockdown or a hard lockdown, and that happens when it's necessary. So and students will be students. If they can get away with bringing something into a building, they will. Only thing to keep knives out of buildings, you'd have to probably strip search them every day.
Candidates, thank you. We're out of time for question and answers. We have now time for your closing statements of 60 seconds each, and based upon the alternating order, that would begin with Judy Johnson.
Thank you for hosting this forum tonight. It's been interesting. I don't think that Tom and I are enemies. I think we're friends. I worked in the Illinois State Senate for over 40 years. That's where I met Tom. I believe that I have the interests of students in mind as a sitting board member and as a candidate. I believe that all students can learn. You may have to adjust the learning cycle, but it can be done. I believe Tom has mentioned the teachers union on numerous times. There has been times when they have not endorsed me, but I'm vocal. I will continue to be vocal. I think that when issues arise, somebody needs to say something. You don't discuss it behind the scenes and then let it go. I believe that if you get people in on what you're talking about, then you create enough furor that people will talk about it, and maybe you can bring about a positive change. We have got to look for the best interests of our students.
And a closing statement now from Tom Shafer.
Thank you, Jim. Judy Johnson has my utmost respect and admiration. Anybody that can sit through 16 years of school board meetings does not have to prove their courage in any other way. We stand on the coattails of giants like Charlie Matthews, like Nina Giavaris, like Chuck Flamini, people that came before us that dedicated their entire working adult life to our district. I love Springfield. I love its students. I love its schools. I love its teachers. I love its citizens. It would be one of the greatest honors to be elected to this board, and I wish I didn't have to run against Judy. It was a unique set of circumstances that presented itself, but my mission on this race is real clear. I'm a results guy. If I can put a diploma in every hand of the students that start in this district, I won't have to prove my success in any other way. I want to thank you for the forum, and Judy, it's always a pleasure.
Once again, a round of applause for our candidates in Subdistrict 6. Thank you all for being here. This forum will be available as a podcast at both sj-r.com and wmay.com. On behalf of Mary Hansen and Jason Neville of the State Journal Register, I'm Jim Leach, WMAY Radio. Have a very good evening.